Hello, my YouTube friends, and welcome to another episode of The Rational Investor. My name is Adam Kahn. Today is January 15th, Monday. I hope you're all doing well. I think it's Martin Luther King Day. I'm super excited today to do today's video, and part of the reason why is one of the subscribers asked if I would share this stuff. So stick around, and I think you're going to find it really enjoyable. So today I'm going to talk about the stocks that I put away for life. And for me personally, I literally take these stocks, I ask the company for the stock certificate, and I put them in a safe deposit box. And the reason I do that is I know I'm too lazy to get off my butt, go to the bank, take them out, bring them back in to sell them. And these are companies I want to own for a minimum of 5 or 10 years because I think they have great growth potential over time. And I find the longer you leave money in the stock market, the better you do. Now, before I forget and before I get into these stocks, if you could do me a favor, if you haven't already, and hit the subscribe button and smash the like button, I really appreciate the support. It helps YouTube's algorithm, helps other people find the channel. I've been really happy to see how things have been going along. I really didn't expect it. I do this stuff because I like to talk about it, and it is what it is. So it gives me an avenue to get out some of the things I like to do. I'm glad to see people are enjoying it as well. The video might be a little bit long, so I prepare you. And I've put it in order of things that I have the most of to what I have the least of by market share and what percentage of my account it is. Um, Whatever, I just put it in that order for you guys so you could understand and see, which means the ones I have the most of, I'd say I like the most, but really, since my goal is to hold them long term, sometimes that's simply because they've just done real well. For example, Meta is the first one on the list. I was fortunate enough to buy it when the stock had collapsed about a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, whatever the timeline was. So I was able to get a decent share price and put on a good amount of shares. I had also owned it from a higher price, but I saw it as an opportunity to buy more when it dropped, and I didn't have too much, so I put on a good bit more. What I really like about Meta at the time is what people didn't like. So Mark Zuckerberg was taking a lot of money and dumping it into the metaverse and pulling it from Facebook. The analysts didn't really like this because Facebook makes a ton of money and they saw him wasting that money. What I envisioned was a guy who saw that Facebook was getting kind of stale. And I don't mean that it's gotten stale the way that some might think, but it had grown to a point that I think the path for growth had pretty much run its course and it was going to be hard to grow over time. So while it was a great cash cow, I think he was looking for new avenues that he could see the company continue to grow because I think he still has it in him to drive like that. And he saw the metaverse. Now, maybe it doesn't work, but I like a guy who's still pushing like that when he's already been as successful as he has. Meta's also Instagram, and I had a small restaurant for a while, and I can tell you for advertising, there was nothing like Instagram. If I did an advertisement on Instagram, people literally came into the store and it was an immediate reaction that I could see and touch and feel and recognize and be able to quantify. Whereas if I did something in the newspaper or something else where traditional avenues or where people might advertise, completely different. So I think for a lot of small business, if it's still the case, because I don't have the restaurant anymore, so I don't know, it really is the number one go-to place. And, I think that's an incredible value to it as well. They're also Oculus. And, my brain goes out there. When I think of the metaverse and I think of things that it could be, especially with school shootings and things like that, I picture that your kids could go to school on an Oculus and you could have some of the best teachers teaching thousands of kids because of the ability to reach them all. And then on top of that, I also picture being able to go to like a football game or the Super Bowl. And just like the stadium, tickets would be based on where you sit in the stadium. And if you wanted 50-yard line seats, you could have it. And you may even be able to like high five the guy next to you when your team scores and things like that. Like I really picture it being an incredible opportunity for the future. Now, that's just my brain. I have no idea what it's going to become. I still think Meta is a great company, and it's my biggest position. Now, also keep in mind, none of this is financial advice. This is me just sharing the stuff that I have. like I said, I was really excited that somebody asked. It's kind of cool that people are saying I like this or I like that, and I will do my best to do whatever somebody would like as a video in terms of my investments. I don't have a problem sharing because my hope is to make other people comfortable that investing isn't that big a deal. It's not that hard to do, and anybody can do it. So that's my number one position, and number two in the list is Amazon. So similarly, Meta, Amazon, and Google, I picked up about a year and a half ago when the stock market was correcting for them, and they had dropped a good bit. They were companies that I wanted anyway, and I had Meta, but I didn't have Amazon and Google. Amazon's number two on the list of what I picked up because during COVID, it's like I found Amazon. I'm sure a ton of people had found it before and were using it already, but I didn't really think much about it. Then as I started using it, my God, I used it for everything. Now my wife's super sensitive. It was about the pricing and getting the best deal and whatever else. For me, it's the convenience. I mean, it's so simple to me to be able to go on my phone, order something, have it delivered to my house, and if it isn't what we need, be able to drop it off at Kohl's or Whole Foods or whatever in order to return it and order what I do need. I use it for a lot of my shopping because of the convenience. I'm not as even price sensitive anymore, and I'm assuming they're pretty competitive, but it is what it is, and I think they're a great company. They also have the Amazon Web Services, and my understanding is starting at the end of this month on Prime and things like that, they're going to start implementing commercials. I know to most of you that sounds annoying, but it's probably a huge revenue source that they haven't even tapped into yet, where they'll be able to drive new money to the company that doesn't even show on their earnings, which might be part of why their price to earnings are so high. Again, keep in mind these are companies I put in the safe deposit box. So as much as I watch that stuff, I really don't care. I want to own it in 10 years. And my hope is in 10 years that Amazon's a much bigger company than it is today. One of the things is I was fortunate enough to go to Europe 2 years ago and Asia last year. Well, you don't see a lot of Amazon trucks. That tells me there's room for them to grow. That's not that they're not there or anything else. Now, the laws might be more difficult or some other things, and maybe people don't use those services the same. But my guess is they start branching into different countries and really getting a mesh there too. It's just more revenue and bigger growth and so on and so forth. Number three on my list is Google, which I mentioned, Meta, Amazon, Google. Google, I love primarily because of the YouTube channel. I found YouTube because my son was using it, and they use it, him and his friends, like I used to watch television. It's really their source for what we call content now, but whether it's televisions or whatever you watch, like that is what he sees as television. And I notice that they're posting more commercials, they're getting more advertisers. I just think same thing. Give it another 5 or 10 years, their position is just going to grow, and you're going to see companies like NBC and ABC having to convert and move to Google. Like they're going to have to be on their platform of YouTube. They also have tons of other ancillary products, which we all know between the search engine and everything else. Google's just a massive competitor. So the next stock in my safe deposit box is Starbucks. I've been a little disappointed that it's floundered the past couple of years, especially considering that earnings have been doing just fine. But I'm going to give a bit of a long story on Starbucks and why I bought it, because I compare it to McDonald's and what it was when I bought it when I was in high school. So I was really lucky to get a gift from my grandfather when I was in high school. He gave it to all of his grandkids. He was getting older and worried about mortality and wanted to see us enjoy some money. He gave each of us $10,000. Now, there's four kids in my family, and my mom took it from all of us. And I kind of went to her and complained. I'm like, Mom, I wanted my money. And she looked at me and she's like, well, what do you want it for? Because I'm sure she figured I wanted to buy a motorcycle or what, at that age, that's probably what she thought. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to buy stock with it. So she looked at me like I had six heads. She's like, well, okay, write down what companies you want to buy and come bring it to me and we'll let you know. So I did. I wrote down Chrysler, I wrote down Eastman Kodak, I wrote down McDonald's, I wrote down GE, and there was one other, I can't remember it, to make up the five stocks I wanted to buy. She approved it. And the point of the story is Chrysler's out of business, Eastman Kodak's out of business. The GE that you see on your stock ticker is not the one that I bought because they had to restructure and it went out of business too. I don't remember number four, but then when you add McDonald's, I bought 100 shares at $21 a share of McDonald's in like 1988. Well, McDonald's is split three times and it's almost at $300 a share. So that would be, I don't have it. I mean, I have 100 shares still, but I don't still have the stock. That would be 800 shares at $300 a share. It would be a $250,000 investment or $240,000 from a $2,000 investment from 1988. It's been a long time. But the point of the story is McDonald's was already an established company. I am not the one that they talk about their grandmother who put, $1,000 in and made millions of dollars. McDonald's was already big, the same way I look at Starbucks today. It just had a lot of time. And during that time frame, it fell in half like three or four times. If you were a trader and paying attention to it, it had some big, scary down moves. But give a great company a lot of time and look at what happens. I mean, the thing's gone up immensely. You have what, 100x your money. So that's why I say you put it away for a long time. And I compare Starbucks to that time frame's McDonald's. Starbucks is where the kids are going. I know it's just drinks, but they spend a good amount of money. It's popular. It's almost like Apple in terms of a status symbol, but I think it's ingrained in society where people live with it in a way that they're going to continue. It's going to give them the ability to grow. Like I said, I've kind of been bummed that it's floundered a bit, but again, I try to wait 5 or 10 years and not pay too much attention. I can't help it because it's who I am, but really, I just think it'll be bigger in 10 years. Next on the list is ExxonMobil. Um, Maybe as we're moving towards electric, there'll be a dinosaur at some point. But I still think for shipping and flying, I don't know that they're the ones selling the gas to the companies. But ExxonMobil's been a behemoth in the oil sector for a long time. I think they'll be able to continue to evolve and change and stay with it. Hopefully, I'm not wrong on it, but that's the next one I have in the safe deposit box. Next is AbbVie, spinoff from Abbott Labs years ago. Really, I picked AbbVie, which is so silly because I put it in the safe deposit box because at the time it was paying a nice dividend and compared to other healthcare stocks. Um, and for whatever reason, there's like I didn't really do a ton of research on it. I like the name and I figured it's a good company. I've been really fortunate that they've performed really well, but again, I'm looking at it for 10 years out or so. So it shouldn't matter that over the past few years it's done well. I just hope it continues to grow. And, I wake up in time when it comes time to retirement and it's a big enough company to add to the portfolio where I can sit back and relax. Well, that's the real goal. Part of why I invest in all this stuff is I hope that the values continue to go up so that at some point I can just kind of relax and live off of whether it's dividend or selling a few bits a share from time to time. And that's to get off the topic a little bit. I try not to get overly concerned with the dividends because let's say I find a stock that pays a 10% dividend, but it doesn't go up versus a company that goes up 10%. Well, you've made the same amount of money. You can choose whether to sell some of the stock and pay the taxes on the one that doesn't pay the dividend, and on the one that does, you got to pay the taxes on that dividend disbursement. Now, it's great as you get older to have some, automatic payments coming in, but I would just be cautious about getting overly sensitive to companies and their dividends and relying on it. Next in the safe deposit box is Intuitive Surgical. So this one is just one I really love. And part of the reason it's a bigger piece of the portfolio, again, is also that it's had such growth over the years. But one of my buddies who works in a dental office and he does their accounting and tech and everything else, he was going on when the economy was collapsing about this company, Intuitive Surgical. And I think he's a really smart guy, so I trusted his opinion on it and I went and I bought some stock and it's working out great. And again, it's just one of those I'm going to stick with for the next 10 years. My thought is over the next 10, 20, 30 years, the medical industry is going to totally transform. More and more surgeries are going to be being done by machines. As far as I understand, they're the leader in this space. Well, not only are they going to be selling the machines, they're going to be servicing, they're going to be replacing the parts, they're going to be continuing to build the newest and best. And if people already have the ones in place, I think it puts them in a great spot to just be the leader. I've been super thrilled to see how it's done. I really didn't put a ton in it, and I've just been watching it grow, and I hope that continues. I hope it's just one of those that kind of takes off over year over year and just keeps doing really well and outperforming. And not a lot of people talk about it, which is something I really love. I love when a company is doing really well and it's not in the news and it's not something people are talking about. It's just something that only those who have it kind of know. Now, I'm sure people have heard of Intuitive Surgical and I'm sure they're aware, but I don't see it being touted on CNBC all that often, except, this week they had some pre-announcement on their earnings and the thing took off. But outside of days like that, it really doesn't get talked about all that often. So next on my list is a company that's been a dog for a lot of years, but I still like them, and it isn't something that I've had this whole time, but is Cisco Systems. Part of why I love Cisco Systems is they have been a dog for a long time. And my guess is they're a really good company. Price to earnings are really reasonable. They pay a 3% dividend or so. And when I look at the earnings, they have plenty of cash to be able to afford that dividend. They're in a space that there's potential that they could really grow over at some point, and maybe they're just overlooked. They were like a darling at one point and one of the top ones, and they collapse, and then they've just been sitting there a long time. Part of what I like about that is if you look back at Microsoft, they made a top one year and then they fell. It took them 16 years before they breached that old high, and that was around $60 in comparison to today's price. So they're what, up 5 times that from there. I think if and when a company like Cisco kind of gets some traction and starts going again, since they've been out of favor for so long, it really gives them an opportunity to potentially grow a lot. Now, again, it's been a dog for a while. Maybe they just sit between 48 and 55 for the next 10 years. I hope not. But they do make money and there is a use to their product. So hopefully they get out of that channel and take off in some time. So the next on my list is Nextera Energy. You guys have probably heard me talk about Nextera Energy Partners in a bunch of my other videos. Now I have Nextera Energy Partners in the dividend account that I do keep, and it's not in the safe deposit box. Nextera Energy is the main parent company. Nextera Energy Partners is a affiliate company to Nextera Energy, and Nextera Energy Partners does like solar and wind. They were doing gas too, but they actually just sold a huge amount of their gas pipelines to Kinder Morgan to try to be 100% renewable. What I really like about Nextera Energy is they're the biggest energy company out there. They're out of Florida. They don't pay a huge dividend, but I think they're probably a really well run company. And I want to own them for the next 10 years. And it puts me in that space where I'm comfortable being. It's not going to be a high flyer. It's not going to triple, quadruple, quintuple in a small amount of time. But I hope it just has some nice steady growth over the next 10 years. So next in the safe deposit box is something that I've talked about also in other videos that I just recently added, which is Caterpillar. It's one of those that I've wanted to own for a long time and I just haven't. But I think that it's going to be really tough for another company to come in and compete with them. Now, I did see something really interesting at CES. I saw some videos of like some products by Hyundai, I think, where they were building electric bulldozers and plows and things like that. So maybe there are companies out there that might try to end up competing in the space, which maybe I'm dead wrong. But my thought process on Caterpillar is who's going to take the risk of putting up billions of dollars to compete in that industry? Like every time I see huge projects, if I see a casino being put up or if I see them working on roads or things like that, what's out there but Caterpillar products? So I don't, like Deere's different and the others aren't quite the same. Maybe somebody will come in and compete. Like I said, the CES show was the first time I saw something that looked like maybe it was. They look like little baby ones. They didn't look like the big, massive ones that Caterpillar has out there. But I don't know if that was just because they couldn't, bring the real size ones to the building, or if they're just going to do smaller ones for different types of projects. So that's what I love about them. They're also at a really reasonable valuation. They give a small dividend, but again, in terms of their earnings, it's such a small percentage of their earnings that it gives them tons of room to grow that if they want to. Um, but I see room for growth as they continue to get into other places and just build stuff. So the next company that I put in the safe deposit box is Pfizer, another one in the healthcare. Um, just big pharma. It's not that I have any affinity towards Pfizer, but I picked it up somewhat recently because I feel like the industry had sold off so hard and is in such a negative spot in terms of where it is in the media. And I don't see them as a bad company. They're paying like 5.5, 6% in dividend, under $30 a share. I'm hoping that that's just a bargain. I don't see any reason they don't continue to grow. And I think the entire industry has gotten so discounted. They're all beginning to buy up other companies, which tells me they see the same thing I do, which is undervaluation. And at the getting the high dividend, I think it's just a bargain price. So I figure I'll buy up a decent amount, throw it in the safe deposit box, and I really hope, like what I picture with a company like Pfizer is not any huge growth, but I'm hoping at the end of 24 that it's trading 35, 36 instead of 28. Now, if it's paying a 5, 6% dividend and it drives up there, that's like a 20% return on the stock as well. And nobody's going to notice because it's not exciting. It's not some huge move where it goes up a ton of money. It's just moved up a little. And if Pfizer's trading at 35 or $36, nobody's going to even pay attention. It's not going to, it's like a nothing, so nobody's going to care. Well, that's incredible return. And if it can do that over the next 10 years, might be lucky, and I hope to be surprised as to where it's trading over the next 10 years. After Pfizer, I have Qualcomm in the safe deposit box. Now, maybe this is the wrong one to have in the chip space, and to be quite honest, I think Nvidia is probably the one space to be in. It's not the one I have. I liked Qualcomm. I always have. They do chips for your cell phones. Um, I hope that they're still doing what they're doing and continuing to grow in the next 5, 10 years. I'm not going to waver. Like I said, I put it in the safe deposit box because I'm not going to make the trip up there to go grab it and make those changes. I still think they're a good company. They pay a nice dividend. I hope they continue to grow, and they extended their contract with Apple. So at least for the next few years, they're going to have a bunch of chips that they're going to be selling to Apple. So I've talked about the next company a bunch of times in a bunch of other videos. I put Foot Locker in the safe deposit box as well. So Foot Locker hired last year a new CEO, Mary Dillon. I bought it last year and I've been sucking wind on it. I actually think I paid like 35 or 36 as it dropped to like 18. But that's also why I put it in the safe deposit box. I really mean it when I say I'm going to own these things for long term. Mary Dillon was the CEO at Ulta Beauty, and she took Ulta Beauty and really drove it up, huge success. When she left Ulta Beauty, my understanding is she wanted to work for Foot Locker. Now, I have some visions too, and I'd kind of want to work for her. Like, I always have these crazy concepts. Like, I don't know what she sees for Foot Locker, but I hope to own it for 10 years and it do as well as Ulta Beauty. Now, it also pays a really good dividend at the same time. So if it flounders a bit, that's just fine. But I have this image of Foot Locker where they can do with sneakers like a Chanel or whatever else, where they put a really nice collectible sneakers in display in the center of the store. And then they can even have those windows on the outside where you can see some really nice collectible ones as well. Maybe they display them a little bit differently where people might come in and want to buy some of the shoes that have become collectible, because sneakers have really changed over the years. They can even have athletes come in and do signings and all sorts of stuff. And I picture a store where they set up like those high end retail stores where maybe it's even roped off and you can't just go in the way you can now. That there's a security guard like managing the volume of people going into the store. They could even do something similar to Nike and open up a flagship, Foot Locker store. Like I see a lot of things that can change too. Now I have no idea if that's what she pictures for the future, but I'm kind of betting on the horse, to so to speak, because I find people who have had success continue to have success when they move to other companies. So I think she'll do real well, and I'm kind of betting on her. It's not that Foot Locker was any standout company that I just thought was going to be the next big thing. I just think she's really good at what she does. So don't worry, I'm getting towards the end of the list. But next on the list is Target. I picked up Target because really I think they got oversold with the stores that were getting broken into and their stance on, political issues. They really got out of favor and undervalued. In fact, even now that they're back up to around 140, I still think they're undervalued in terms of their price to earnings ratio and their potential for growth over the next few years. I think Target's a great company, and if we have a downturn, like they tend to outperform during bad times as well. So I love Target. I think it's a great spot to be in. I really do plan to own it for the next 5 or 10 years. We'll see. I mean, Target's one of those though. If it gets overpriced, I don't mind getting out of. I also have some in my dividend account that I picked up when it fell. Those I actually sell some covered calls against, but if you've watched the other videos, I sell like a 1 year out 210, $220 call because my thought is if the stock rallies 50% and I can pick up an extra dividend payment, I'll be okay getting out of it. Especially, I mentioned in that video if you want to own it forever, because I still have some in the safe deposit box that I don't even touch. So the last three that I'll talk about that are in the safe deposit box are a little bit more interesting. I have a much smaller percentage of my portfolio in them, but I hope they really hit it well. One of them is Match.com. I think the world's changed. Like when I was a kid, I wouldn't even have imagined finding somebody I date on the internet. But I think that's changed dramatically. My nieces and nephews and all, like that's kind of where they date. Now, don't get me wrong, they go out as well, but a lot of them have met people online through these platforms. And I think as the world keeps going and as things evolve, not only will they meet them locally, but people look at people internationally and all sorts of things in terms of dating. I think these sites have huge potential. And their price to earnings ratio at this point is really reasonable. I think on forward earnings, Match is at like 16, and their growth rate over the next 5 years is supposed to be like 28%. Like I've even thought of adding on to Match.com. Nobody really talks about it, and I think it's got a huge potential. Dating is a super important product aspect for all of our lives. We're social creatures, and the internet has changed all of that. Now, maybe somewhere comes along that allows it to happen for free or is able to compete, but right now they dominate that space. So I think Match.com is a great spot to be. I also have Shopify. I put a very small amount of money in it that I threw in the safe deposit box because I don't know a ton about it. I've been really fortunate with it the last year because it took off. It like more than doubled or tripled. Um, but again, that's why I put it in the safe deposit box. My hope is that I get lucky with something like that, and I put it there because maybe it just grows and grows and grows and becomes something like Tesla, where I wake up one day and I'm like, oh my God, how did that happen? I don't know a ton about Shopify. I know Mr. Beast talks about it, and places use it to be able to put up and sell goods and run their websites and whatever else. I don't use it myself. I've just heard the name. My son seems to know what it is, and I thought I'd take a shot on it. And last but definitely not least is another one that I'm hoping could get lucky and hit a home run is Zillow Group. I've mentioned Zillow before. If they have the vision for real estate that I could see, and they could actually own a percentage of the market share of real estate as the industry transforms, now that would take a long time. But imagine having an actual percentage of market share of the real estate market versus being a realtor or a broker or a loan officer or any of the other individual aspects. What I can picture, and I mean this seriously, is imagine one day similar to like how you buy a car Tesla. Now Tesla's which I wish I had in there as well. I just don't. Same with Microsoft. Those are two great companies that kind of should be in the safe deposit box, and I don't own either of them, but it is what it is. We own what we have. Um, so I envision a time where you can put a home on what I would call Zillow Direct. Forget the MLS, forget the current system. If you're selling a home, we'll charge you $699 upfront and 1% total transaction fee once and if the house sells. The $699 will cover pictures, an inspector, and an appraiser. So somebody will come out and inspect the house. We'll do pictures of the house to be able to post it and put it up for sale, and we'll get an appraisal. When you list the house, there'll be two prices. Since we have the inspection, either you can do the repairs and we'll sell it for this appraised price. That's where we'll list it. Or if you don't do the things that came out on the inspection report, then we'll list it at this price along with the inspection report so that the buyer has the option of doing the things they want to update or fix or correct in the house. And the price will be the price. There'll be no negotiating. They could then hire their own in-house realtors. They'll hire college kids or high school kids, get them licensed, who open doors for people, which might have been why Open Door was called Open Door. They'll be there 24/7. You'll have somebody dedicated if you're selling, and you'll have somebody that can show people the houses, and they'll just pay them a small salary instead of the commissions that they currently get. They'll have their own in-house lending, so they'll make sure that the buyers have already gotten pre-approved, and they'll probably be able to do their own title company. So imagine a world where you've already been pre-approved. When you see the house, if you like it, it's sitting there with your monthly payment, how much closing costs will be, and all the title work already done. And the price is the price, so there's no negotiating back and forth. So if you walk into that house and you like it and you want to buy it, you can sign the paperwork and close the next day. You'll have the keys right then and there potentially and go on with your day or your life. I just see it transforming and changing. Our current system is great. People are way too hard on it. I looked at properties in other countries and it's a nightmare. Having 6 different platforms that places go to, using multiple realtors with different prices, you have no idea on valuation. It's very uncomfortable looking at homes. So I don't have a problem with our current system. But what I think is a lot of buyers go directly to Zillow. Now they go to Redfin and they still go to Realtor.com and some of the others, but I would say a majority go to Zillow. So while Zillow and the MLS are getting distracted fighting about the wrong thing, Zillow has such a majority of the market share of people looking at homes. They all get confused as to where to go. If they can just change it and stop worrying about the wrong stuff and say, forget it. What do we need the other stuff for? People already come to us and we can create our own ecosystem and system in place. Now, the current realtors, forgive me because I work for a lot of you and I think you're wonderful at what you do. I really do. I think there's some great agents out there, but they're not going to want to work in the system because they're going to get underpaid. They're just not going to get the pay that they deserve because Zillow will be able to have their own people in house that they're not paying the same, that they're paying them an annual salary just to do a job. Anyway, those are the ones that I put in the safe deposit box. Sorry if it's a forever long video. I hope you guys liked it. I'm going to repeat again. Do me a favor if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and make a comment. Be like, I made it all the way to the end. I watched the whole thing. Thanks so much, Adam. I'll love you for it. So let me know what else you guys want me to talk about, and have a great afternoon.